Good morning, I'm Chris from Quarantine Aquarium, and in this video we're going to talk about setting up a quarantine tank for saltwater fish. Basically be the same process if you were doing this for freshwater fish. I would recommend all the same things, so we probably should just strike that and say setting up any quarantine tank. The reason for setting up a quarantine tank is you spend a lot of money on your fish, you have a lot invested in your display tank. Rather than just bringing a new fish home, putting it into the tank and not knowing if it's going to bring some pathogens into the tank that are going to be harmful and cause much more problems infecting your whole tank, it's better to set up a decent quarantine system. That way you can treat those fish, make sure that they are healthy and happy before they go into your display. There's two kinds of ways people do quarantine. One of them is simply an observational tank. In this case, you're going to just put the fish into an operating cycle tank. You're going to watch them for a long period of time, generally a month and a half, 2 months. Make sure everything's going well before putting them in your tank. The method I prefer is a medicated quarantine tank. This way we're going to just step it up. We're going to go ahead and medicate for internal and external parasites. We're going to make sure those fish are good and clean and healthy and ready to go into your tank. The first thing is selecting your tank for quarantine. Here I have a 20-gallon long. This is a popular tank for quarantine. Quarantine tanks are best if they're shorter rather than your taller tanks, because you have more surface area there, more swim space, more oxygen for the water. So usually we're going to go with something like a 20 long or a 40 breeder. Minimum 20 long. It's important for two reasons that your quarantine tank is as large as you can possibly find space for or do. First off, it needs to be large enough for the fish. If you're going to be quarantining larger fish, you're going to need to set up a larger quarantine for them for two reasons. One, so that they are happy and not stressed in the environment, and two, quarantine tank that's medicated is going to be run as a sterile system. We're not going to have the benefit of cycle tank with bacteria for reducing nitrates. So having a larger water volume relative to the number of fish that are in the water volume is going to help out with helping us to keep those nitrates down during the quarantine process. The tank for filterization is just going to need a small back filter. I like to use AquaClear. AquaClear has since been bought by Fluval. So their AC filters are marketed. Some of them say AquaClear on the top, some of them say Fluval because they still use both names. The reason I like these is they use just a sponge that goes in the inside. Because we're quarantining with medication, we can't use the filter cartridges that go in many of back filters that have carbon infused or carbon inside the filter bag. AquaClears have a good quiet pump. They provide good water flow, and they use a sponge. So I would go with that for your quarantine tank for a hang-on back filter. The filter's only going to be doing two things for us. One, it has a sponge to pick up particulates in the tank, and two, it's got a good spill coming into the tank to help add aeration and top water movement. You can also add a small power head if you have a large quarantine, if you want to add some more water movement into the tank for oxygenation, point that movement towards the top. Most of the time on a quarantine, the back filter is going to be plenty for what you need. We're not going to use substrate in a quarantine tank. The reason for this is we're not trying to develop any biological filter media or biology growing in a sand bed or a gravel bed. And two, we can easily use a gravel vacuum or a small tube to suck off any debris, any uneaten food or anything that happens to develop on the bottom of the tank. This is important again because the cleaner we keep it, the less we're going to have to worry about those nitrates creeping up because we don't have biological benefits going for the system. As far as inside the system, we're not going to use live rock or driftwood if it's fresh water tank or anything like that. We want innate decorations so that the fish have someplace to hide. These are just a couple plants, aquarium plants, those work well. You can also use PVC pipes You can cut the pipes, get some that have holes big enough for the fish to comfortably swim in and hide in. You can buy tees, work really well. You can get these any size you want based on the size of the fish that you're going to be putting in the quarantine. That should keep everybody low stress, happy, healthy. Now on to the important stuff, the medication and feeding. It's important when we're doing quarantine that we not only medicate the fish and try and cover our bases for internal and external parasites, but also that we feed them a very high quality diet so that they are healthy and repairing from any damage that may have been caused from shipping, any stress, whatnot. So we're going to have a good diet going on as well. I like to feed a medicated food to take care of the internal parasite issue. That way also I don't have a water-based internal parasite medication going in along with a water-based external parasite medication. Select a good pellet food. This is just cobalt marine. This has probiotics. If you select a food with probiotics in it, that's a good thing as well. I like to select some pellet omnivore food for this purpose because it absorbs some of the nutrition and the medication that we're going to add. For nutrition, you can get garlic supplements. This is Seachem Garlic Guard. Many companies make them. First, we'll put some food into a container. We'll add a little bit of garlic supplement to start absorbing in that food. You can also use a vitamin supplement. I really recommend Boyd Vitachem, but there are many other products that are a vitamin supplement that can be added to food. Add a little bit of that in there with the garlic, and then you're on to medicating that food. For internal parasites, we generally use a Seachem product called Metroplex, and we're going to be using this in a feeding method rather than a water dosed method. It will be used throughout the 2-week quarantine cycle with the food. You can read the directions. You put a small scoop of this in with your food, and then Focus helps in order to bind the medication to the food so that it absorbs and is not just dissipated in the water quickly and gets to the fish. Focus is also made by Seachem, so add that as well. For our external parasite treatment, the go-to is always copper. I prefer to use what's called complex copper. The #1 brand for that is Cupramine by Seachem. There are other brands of complex copper. That's going to be better than using chelated copper, Copper Power, some of your other products. It is less harsh on your fish. However, I do recommend ordering a copper test kit. You need to order the copper test kit made by Seachem when you're using the Cupramine product. The reason I recommend ordering this is Cupramine tends to, in my experience, not be strong enough when I first put it in at the required dose, and I need to put in additional copper to get up to the therapeutic recommended dose for the copper, which is what you're going to need to maintain for the 2-week quarantine process. Once that's done and you've added your copper and you've got your tank up and ready running, you're going to be able to add your fish, whatever you're quarantining. Because the tank does not have biological benefits going for us, we are only going to go about a week, and then we're going to do a 50% water change on the tank. At that point, you're going to need to add additional Cupramine to bring that copper level back up to 30 to therapeutic dose, and then you're going to go another week to finish off the 2-week quarantine process for those fish. If all goes well, the fish are looking healthy at that point, eating well, they're ready to go into your tank with confidence that they're not going to cause a problem with your other fish. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, you can always look us up online, Discount Aquarium Fish and Reef. You can find our Instagram, our Facebook, our webpage, our email, and you can get a hold of us through any of those sources. We do have other videos, how-tos, things like that on all of those social media outlets and our website. You can ask us any questions you have. You can enter video topics that you'd like us to cover, so please look into that and we'll be glad to help at that point. My name is Kline, and this has been my time.